The stories contained in this podcast are the recollections of the guests we've invited onto the show. We are an outlet for people to share their truths, and we accept no legal responsibilities for the stories contained herein.
I'm Kendra Sheets.
And I'm Rich Gill.
And this is Enough, a podcast that aims to shine light into the darkened corners of the music industry while discussing the ways we can and should improve ourselves and, in turn, our community. Hi. Hello. I'm doing my best right now not to let out an audible scream as we begin this new episode of Subtext. This is our very first recorded episode after the 2024 election in the United States. And honestly, we'd planned a completely different topic for this episode. We planned it like 6 months ago. We were so excited about what the topic was going to be. And when the election hit, we actually threw all that out the window when we saw the popular vote and the Electoral College numbers come in. So, welcome to this episode of the Enough Podcast. This is Subtext. I'm one of your hosts, Kendra Sheets.
And I am also one of your hosts, Rich Gill.
And we're going to try and do a podcast when we're almost completely at a loss for words. So here we go.
So let's just talk about the news. The country has reelected Donald Trump for a second term after 4 years of reprieve from his first term. America, the country we live in, has elected a man who has been accused of sexual harassment and assault by at least 18 women. America, this country that we live in, has elected a man who is known for the famous grab him by the pussy catchphrase. This fucking country that we live in has elected a man who has called females who have challenged him mentally impaired, dummy, nasty, filthy, dirty, disgusting, among other childlike and terrible, stupid insults. His VP, JD Vance, has shared views that women seemingly hold more value when they have children, when they are raising children, that women cannot be great leaders or teachers without having children, and that women who choose a career path over rearing children choose a, quote, path of misery.
That fucking guy, right?
That fucking guy.
I'm very happy on my path of misery, so eat a fuck, JD Vance. Honestly. And if the thought of having that fabulous duo at the helm of the free world isn't enough to send you spiraling into a deep depression, perhaps, oh just perhaps, you've heard about some of Trump's proposed cabinet appointments that came out this last week. We've got RFK Jr. leading the Department of Health and Human Services. He's a friend of contagious diseases which can easily be contained by vaccines. He's a believer that Wi-Fi causes cancer. And he's a man who's cheated on his wife, actress Cheryl Hines, who I'm sure many of you know from Curb Your Enthusiasm, with at least one woman, with 3 more stating me too. And then there's Matt Gaetz. Jesus fucking Christ. Matt Gaetz, who snagged the nomination for Attorney General, which heads the Department of Justice, the same department which has been investigating him for years for sexual misconduct with a woman under 18, along with illicit drug use. I think the quote that one of the other Republicans shared was that Matt Gaetz used to go around the floor talking and bragging, I guess, about how he used to crush up ED medicine and then chase it with like a Monster energy drink. If that's not the broiest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life, like, and this is the dude who's going to be in charge of the Department of Justice. Jesus Christ.
What are we doing? What is happening?
And with this new nomination, this is where it gets even better. Gaetz has resigned his position in Congress, which means that the House Ethics Committee cannot technically share their findings, and they're no longer now able to drop this damning report that they supposedly took fucking years working on, that they claimed was going to basically be his end. He quit before they could fire him, for all intents and purposes. This is where we're at right now.
It's fucking infuriating. There are no words.
There are so many words, and yet there's like no words.
Trump is filling his cabinet with people just like him, people who skirt the consequences of their actions and who get a pass at continually injuring others around them. There's that fucking dildo Elon Musk, who Trump has invented a position for, who calls himself the first buddy. Did he steal that from Dogma? Like, what the fuck, man?
Dude, he sucks so hard.
Earlier this year, Musk was hit with a sexual harassment lawsuit from 8 employees from SpaceX. He was sued by 7 women in 2022 from Tesla. And let's not forget Brett Kavanaugh, a person who is sitting on the Supreme Court, a Trump appointee in 2018. 4 women accused him of sexual assault, but he was appointed anyway because, who cares, I guess. The election has spawned articles from joke websites like Reductress with such titles as, quote, former president has been indicted more times than he's had consensual sex, end quote. Or,
it's a good one.
I'd like that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or this good one, Donald Trump commemorates election with celebratory sexual assault. Or, always inspired to see that someday they can grow up to be the most powerful sexual predator in America. It makes my fucking blood boil that this is where we are as a country. It's fucking terrible and infuriating that politics and what many will soon learn to be false promises of wealth led us here. But here we are.
I'm going to be really honest with everyone who's listening. So I woke up the morning after the election and I rolled over after going to sleep and cutting myself off of media at 10:30, 11 o'clock the night before because I was so, what do they call it? Liberal tears. I was just streaming liberal tears, except they weren't liberal tears. They were tears of anger in the fact that we now have turned the clock back on how the public was going to view women. So I woke up that morning and I looked at the numbers and I had a heart attack. And then when I recovered from my heart attack moments later, I texted Rich and our editor and I said that I think I was just done with the podcast. I mean, how the fuck could we continue something like this during a Trump presidency? Part of the podcast was spawned because of a Trump presidency. I mean, I had wanted to do this since 2018 or 19 because of the Trump presidency. And then there was COVID. And then with COVID, I ended up detaching more from the music scene. And I felt really enabled to do this because I didn't have the same ties that I did. I wasn't worried about what people were going to think of me. And I thought, this is what we really need to do. This is what we always should have done, but I just wasn't there yet. And this podcast started during Biden's presidency, where we felt a bit more empowered to speak out, to speak up, and to share our truths. And now, as we move into the next 4 years, survivors are going to likely feel so raw, knowing that there is a rapist in the White House. Not one, 40. We named off a shit ton. And they're going to end up basically switching into survival mode over the next few years. How can we actually ask people to come forward and share their stories about abuse and assault in a world where there are seemingly no consequences for anyone out there who abuses other people? Rich texted me back and shared he felt the same way. And I said, maybe as the day continues, I'll change my mind. I don't know. I feel like shit, whatever. And as the day did go on, I thought about how disgusted I would feel letting someone I find to be so fucking vile be the death of something that we've all worked so hard on over the last few years. There are still stories to share, and the exchanging of information and experiences only makes us wiser, especially in a time where people are trying to quell people sharing experiences and crush information so people don't know what they're doing and are not able to move forward in the same way. I refuse to let someone like Donald fucking Trump's bloated orange carcass filled with hatred decide whether or not we're going to keep doing what we want to do. If we're going to stop making episodes of this podcast, it's going to be on our terms, not because we're downtrodden or exhausted or because we think that America is literally a giant trash fire and has no hope of returning from that and we might as well, just sink into the hellscape that is going to be the next 4 years. We've been exhausted before, we've been tired before, and we kept going. And we're going to keep going now.
All that said, we've been doing this since July 2021. Sometimes it feels like a lot longer because we've been talking about it for years before that.
It's literally the Titanic gif where it's like, it's been 84 years.
Yes.
Like, that's how long we've been doing this podcast.
Pretty much, yeah. Those of you who have been with us since the beginning have seen that we've tweaked our format as we've gone. We've learned new skills. We've learned how to better ourselves through conversations. We've sat with guests and cried over Zoom. We've laughed over Zoom. We've gotten no shortage of negative reviews by people who think that our main goal is to just cancel everyone, cancel all men, cancel all artists.
Cancel culture works. Look at where we're at. It works, right? It's doing a great fucking job. Yeah.
Perfect examples. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
While the survivors and guests of the show are the ones who have always done the heavy lifting by being so brave to come forward and share some of the darkest, most terrible moments of their lives with us. And the listeners, you're a big part of it also. We also are facing fatigue from living in a world where we eat, sleep, and breathe stories of abuse and assault. As we have mentioned in prior episodes, we share every piece of news about these topics with each other as soon as we find it. Books, articles, journal, we've read all that stuff. All of it about assault, harassment, abuse, violence, and consent. And we're fucking tired. We're pretty exhausted. The election definitely took a lot of wind out of our sails. Knowing that America had two choices and chose a fucking rapist to lead this country over an overqualified woman is absolutely devastating. But while the country may choose to go back, we refuse to. Knowing that abusers and rapists have been given a literal get out of jail free card and repercussions will likely continue to not exist over the next 4 years is so disheartening. It sucks beyond any reasonable doubt. It's awful. But that doesn't mean that we're giving up or shutting up. Not by a long shot.
So starting next year, we're going to be changing our format. We're going to continue to have monthly episodes, but they will likely be more information-driven and less experience-driven. We will be seeking guests who are survivors in their own right, who have taken that trauma and dove deep into it, learning from it, learning how to speak about it, learning how to speak to others about their trauma. We'll be showcasing more voices like Dr. Nicole Badera, who was in episode 69, Nerdy from episode 55, Laura Danger from episode 24, or Kristen Crabtree from episode 4. We're going to be looking for activists, teachers, community leaders, social workers, therapists, anyone who wants to not only share their story, but can teach others, including us, how to better ourselves and our communities. As we shared the day after Election Day on our Instagram, while we are all exhausted, we cannot give up. We can never stop fighting. We must always be the change we want to see in the world. We must focus this anxiety and rage into building our communities on a micro level for there to be any hope for change on a macro level. And that change starts with all of you, with us. While Nick Fuentes and his MAGA chud following may think it's your body, my choice, well, this is our podcast, our choice, so fuck you. The only way out of something is through. So we're heading into this presidency right alongside all of you.
We'll be honest, things are bleak and they're likely to get a whole lot bleaker. I'm currently recording this from a hotel room in Minneapolis where I've been for the past week, putting on a film festival. And I've been talking to lots of visiting filmmakers and guests from across the US, Canada, other parts of the world. And overwhelmingly, everyone is feeling the same. They're saying that they're scared, confused, angry. They don't have the energy to fight anymore. They don't know if it's even worth fighting anymore. And that's okay. It's okay to let yourself feel that way. We all do for a little bit. That doesn't mean we quit altogether. We rest, we regroup, plan, and be prepared to keep pushing for the change that we want to see in the world. The change that we know is right. We will keep pushing for a world where survivors are believed without being questioned about their motives, where women are not treated like prizes or trash, but as human fucking beings.
Episodes ago, somewhere near the very beginning, I made a comment about refusing to leave the scene even though it's fucked up and misogynistic and hateful and I just don't feel like I fit there half the time. And I made a parallel to a house. If the house you invested in that you paid for is full of trash, you don't abandon the house because it's filled with trash. You clean it up. It's the same this time. It's not any different. This is our country too. We could flee to Canada. We could hide in a fucking hole, drunk off our asses for 4 years, pretending this isn't happening, trying to block shit out. We could submit to the fact that there's something in this house that doesn't belong here, that's impeding our ability to use the house the way that we should. We're going to keep going with the hope that one day that people will understand that while people make mistakes, they need to be held accountable for their actions. People are able to make mistakes. We all are learning all the time. And hopefully we're better versions every day of ourselves than prior days. But there is no room in this house, this scene, this country for people who consistently choose to injure other people. People that see the rifts in communities and aim to widen them instead of bringing them together. People that look at those who are downtrodden or further down the line than they are and choose to manipulate or use those people for their wishes. This is a country that deserves better, just like our music scene deserves better. And while it's exhausting, disheartening, all of the words that we've used throughout this entire episode, to keep moving forwards towards a light we can't even see, we know that a change will come. And eventually, step by step, push by push, we'll see a change within our communities. We'll see a change within our nation. I hope you join us as we move through the last 2 episodes of 2024 with our original format, and as we take a new shape in 2025.
Enough is a podcast centering on surviving abuse, harassment, and assault in the music scene. To help get the word out, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. If you have been on the receiving end of harm from someone, be it artist, venue owner, booking agent, audience member, or someone else, and would like to share your story on a future episode, please reach out to us at thisisenoughpodcast@gmail.com. All correspondences are kept confidential.